Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745 here with my continued playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice 8 and Third Reich events installed. We are currently shifting our forces over to the Yugoslav border. I am not going to sit around and wait for Yugoslavia to join the Axis and then betray us and then we invade. It's... yes, a little bit of knowing history beforehand. Obviously, a lot of it is that, actually. And but this is a bit more of a blatant use of that. So you can mobilizing, okay. So we're just going to go in and invade it and take it. Now this may have changed. I'm going to have to look at the text so I fully read it, the code, before I decide to do this. Before, it used to give some bonuses, but some negative bonuses to defense, but negatives to attack. I'm looking through here and I'm only seeing positives right now. The asymmetric warfare, as in, it used to be really good if you're going to be, I don't know, somebody like Czechoslovakia and try to defend your borders. But if you were going to be Germany and attack, they were sort of negative aspects. But we'll look at that. So that may have be a change for this version, but I'm going to read it a little bit more on that one before I choose asymmetric warfare. Aircraft systems. I like armor plating, but it does reduce range, or increases build time and reduce range and reduce speed. I think some armor plating that we've done is good, and probably some more would be good too, but I want to, before I start hampering my aircraft with too much negatives, I want to improve it with other positives here, even more so. So we're going to go with here, which obviously increases speed, which helps offset some of that. So we can also now build ski troops if we want. Okay, autumn mud. Mud has begun to affect combat regions. The affected include Northern Europe, Spain, Italy, North Africa, and Eastern Europe. Russia, in particular, is notorious mud season. Attacking the mud makes combat very difficult. Air power is the key to destroying the enemy during this time. How interesting. Okay, bog. Now, is it going to be showing up here on the thing like it used to, or I'm not sure exactly how we're going to, and if when, see it. I'm hoping we'll still be able to operate, at least I'm planning to, one way or another, operate into Yugoslavia here in this mud season. And I do, if it's anything like the old mud, it's not the same everywhere. It's different levels of effect. So hopefully that way it won't be too bad. Okay, Danish 20mm cannon, 20mm a machine gun. The M38 Danish army was responsible for knocking out 11 armored cars and 2 Panzer Is. Well, it's not surprising. Almost anything could do that. During the German invasion, before the order to surrender came through, the Germans were naturally very impressed with this weapon and had them exported to Germany. I believe that is a Madsen weapon. There's maybe partially I believe that is because I think that was the only weapons manufacturer in Denmark at the time. Madsen. They did some very good machine guns, though a bit overly complicated. So, what do we get here for that? So we got some anti-aircraft guns, light anti-aircraft guns. Okay. We'll find a use for them. Operation strategic bombing of England. No, we're not going to do that. I'm going to skip it. I don't need the IC effects. I don't know if they're going to overly well help us out. So no, we'll take the veteran HQs. Hopefully, good bunch of them. Put these things down here. Those can really help out divisions. And as you can hear, we have lots of a few rare materials from Bulgaria. We're still sinking, excuse me, a lot of vessels here. Not really so many there. 2 there. Yeah, they're in good shape. Yes, we want SS engineers. So yeah, one. We're getting a few off here. Now, what do we have here that's ready to go? Okay, well, let's see. How far can they operate? No, I can't quite get down to there. They can get down to there. Passive. So that will... That's also good. Let's see about putting them out here. Passive. Hopefully they'll scoop up a lot of stuff on their way out. Greece, I believe, still has an alliance with Yugoslavia, so they'll be entering the war when I attack Yugoslavia, and I hope to be before the end of the year in Athens. Okay, desert unit training, so that would be desert training, I presume, or desert equipment. Good. Like I say, we're going to be heading south. Athens is just part of that. And do this, increases the build time a little bit, but helps a few units with organization and desert movement. So, and this is more for the same unit, so we'll do some of this. Should have more garrison. Up in Kirkness and a few of the Brass Cherbourg, I put some radars into production there. These guys still have a time to Okay, yes, SS motorized artillery. We want that. Okay. This event happened originally in October 39 because that happened after the fall of Poland, and it's key to happen sometime after the fall of Poland. This is an event put on by some pictures here plus the poster. The Reich Colonial Bund reads, return all of our lost land, not just, shown here in Poland, but Africa and out in the Pacific Islands that they had lost. As I said, this is a Tanganyika event. I really don't know that even this group, even in their wildest dreams, really thought they were going to get any of their Pacific Island possessions back. Mainly because even by 39 they were more and more in alliance with Japan, and at least many of the more northerly islands had picked up by Japan, because Japan entered the World War I basically to get some of these islands. Some of the other ones were picked, the more southerly ones were picked up, like Australia, Britain, or whatever you want to call some of that. Whether they really wanted them back or thought they'd get them back, I guess if Germany had gone down the pro-China route, they might have thought they could push for it. But what I really believe they wanted was primarily Tanganyika, Cameroon, and Southwest Africa back. That's definitely the greater population area. That's there just to sort of remind the player, hey, you have Tanganyika installed, and you might want to think about. We don't need to keep them flying. Just burning fuel. Where's the here? These guys can stop flying, and we can also stop. These guys are waiting, but they can stop flying too. Blockade action underway. Okay. We successfully blockaded enemies. I don't know where we're doing this right at the moment, but I'm not terribly familiar with it. From what I understand is if you were to park a fleet off of here and do convoy raiding and sink convoy, supplies would still get through. Just the game mechanics, nothing you can do about it. The only time supplies aren't going to get through is if you actually sink enough convoys everywhere that they can no longer run them. So it's more of a situation of you have to sink. So you can sink convoys up here. Now theoretically the convoy may be leaving from here and heading to Malta. But even if it wasn't, you can sink convoys anywhere on the planet that you slowly attrit their convoys away. And that's all you need to do. So unless you kill all the convoys, you can't effectively blockade. What they've done is, and it's rather clever, and I gather it works fairly well, is that by parking a ship out here long enough uncontested, it will slowly lower the port level there down to the point of being like no port level, damage it, I guess, and then eventually, so they'll run out of supplies. If you do that long enough, they'll stop getting supplies, and then you can they will lose organization for lack of supplies, and then you can invade. So this is a direct way to blockade things. So think of that in future if you have the need or desire to try to deny the enemy. supplies somewhere that you want to blockade them. And it may be because we just, the action's happening, maybe because we were just off here briefly. The raid's off Gibraltar or something like that. But that's an informational event. Okay, let's see. I want to make sure. Let's send that weekly down here. I want that covered from either a revolt risk, rise, or some wild ass invasion. Just because Canada sees, oh, we're at war, oh, there's an empty port, oh, let's send in 4 divisions. I'm sure that'll defeat Germany. Yeah, distract a few of my divisions, but I want to face real challenges that are, you know, somewhat historically realistic. Not suicide invasions, as I came to call them. Okay, elite commando units have advanced to 1 level. That allows us to build commandos. And underground resistance units allows research of air commando brigades, midget submarines, commando training, and command and control. That's all cool and groovy and everything. We're going to stop that. We're going to shift it down here, sort of for that, but we're going to do level 1 desert command and control. Notice so far in this game is they seem to be doing a lot less British intervention up into Norway here. What is trade offer? We give them money for crude oil. Okay. Persia, no, we like you, but we don't want to ship oil in. Even a little bit. I don't want the convoy losses, either in the sense of losing convoys and having them to replace them, or even even more important, the loss of national unity from the sinkings. That's another thing we're doing to Britain. We're disrupting their national unity by all those sinkings. Okay, I want to attach you, to detach you there, attach you to OB West, which I'm not really sure of that. No, that's an inherited HQ from Austria. We'll detach him. He's a mobile division, isn't he? He's a mobile infantry division. Well, we'll send him over here. Don't know if we'll use him in the campaign. I'm not waiting for him, at least. And don't know for sure if we're going to use this. OB West is the inherited one from Austria. And Guderian there. Okay. We're detaching them from there. Now I've reassigned von Rundstedt off camera to command here, and von Brauhitsch to command here over Commando de Heers, so that they are going to get both benefits from the invasion here. We'll get another Panzer Division is ready. The 16th, put it there. I like Von Schell. He's the one that came up with the shell plan. We'll leave him there to get experience. Do we have a good HQ to attach? Nearby, yeah. Number Panzer Group Guderian. Which one is this? Tank communications. That's good. We'll switch that over to infantry radios. My understanding the US had the best radios of the war. But the walkie-talkie that we often, at least in America, have come to sort of think of as the handheld one. Walkie-talkie was actually the backpack one. I forget what they called the one that was sort of a banana-shaped radio. It was very short. The one that you put up to your ear, sort of a one-piece radio. That was like max 3 miles and relatively good line of sight. Kind of radio range. You had to basically be, like I say, roughly 3 miles or something from the larger backpack style radios that needed considerably more batteries and possibly a second person carrying other batteries and things like that. Okay, escort ship fire control advance. Germany did have good radios. I have bookmarked somewhere a guy, I think in Norway, who collects German radios and that I've used to get some images and information off of them. Fire control. Okay, so that's grayed out. That's why. Okay, that makes sense. We're doing pretty good here. Depth charges is about the only thing we can see about advancing there. We're building a carrier. Capital ship fire control. Okay, we'll go with heavy anti-aircraft. That'll help us. Because these, I believe, are all upgradable to ships without having to run them back through the production cycle, which is, really sticking them in a dry dock. Okay, the General Director der Ostbahn East Railway. Another event supplied by George 1941. Let's click over to infrastructure mode. This will allow us to improve our railway system in the east. Takes metal, energy, a little bit of raw materials, create good steel. Supplies, some money to pay the somewhat foreign workers here, and some manpower to do that, or we can save our money and supplies. I think it would help us. There'll be a second event that actually gives us the rails after a time. I think it'll be good for moving supplies east later on. So we'll do that. And they did get in there and improve the rail system and organize it up better. Okay, we're just waiting on these last few units. Okay. Himmler metals. I don't like this event, but okay. Let's see. 80% chance. National revolt risk down. National manpower down. 20% chance. Okay, we'll let the French know who's boss. The other way, let's see. Demand military control of the SS. No, we're not going to do that. That has other negative. So we'll do Himmler does his stuff. Okay, home front focus advance. We obviously lose some manpower, but gain supply production, provincial AA efficiency, and repair rate. We like 3 of those 4 things. Do we want to continue that? I think not at this time. I just don't want to lose more than manpower at the moment. We're doing okay at about 1,500, but I could either see casualties or a larger ground force buildup that could eat into it. If you start building lots of ships or aircraft that take up a lot of resources but not a lot of manpower, you can easily afford that. If we're going to build a lot of just basic infantry divisions to help deal with the large front here, they're going to eat up a lot of manpower again. Like if you go over to expensive armored divisions with lots of mechanized elements within them, they're going to be expensive to build, but for the IC uses versus the manpower uses, it doesn't use a lot of manpower up. Depends on how you're focusing and how you want to do it. Okay, sniper warfare. We've improved that. I think we'll switch over to here. Continue to improve these things. We're just slowly, naturally losing this. I'm going to detach them. And we need pack artillery here now. Let's see if we have somebody else we want to shift over here. This would be very good. No, not him. We could even demote von Bach. Von Welch should be. He's going to be the guy. No leader. We'll put him in charge of the mountain troops here, even though he's sort of somewhat of a panzer or higher, but I want him to get more experience here directly. So we're going to attach all these to the this group, right? No. He's attached to that. Guderian. Guderian. First Panzer Army, which is also coming. Guderian. And I'm looking at core HQs right now. First Panzer Army. First Panzer Army, 12th Army now. Let's give him to the mountain troops. Okay. Our submarines that we just sent out doing. Where's the one that belongs here? Those are that. Those are there. Oh, they're here there? Okay. Interesting. Vichy, France. We give them money for crude oil. Alright. Next episode, I think it's going to be the invasion time. Just because I want to get these guys here. Okay. No. Okay, amphibious operations for, amphibious armor for Operation Sea Lion. They did, don't know when that's obviously the 38T, the Czech tank. They built some Panzer IIs, I know, that would float. And they built some Panzer IIIs that would sink, but would have, floating breathe tubes that would float on the water for air intake, and the whole vehicle was sealed up. It wasn't sealed up to take very deep water pressures, but you could drive them off the end of a some sort of boat thing onto beach, and they would go down and hit bottom and drive to the top. You wouldn't obviously drive across the channel or anything, even halfway, even mildly deep at all. But the gas intake, air intakes for the engines and exhaust, and some air intake for the humans in there. They never ended up using them obviously for Operation Sea Lion, because it didn't happen, and they might not have been used anyways, because they were drive off the end of the boat. Not every beach is going to be necessarily have a bottom that a tank is going to be able to drive up to the onto the beach with, and you can't necessarily open the armor underwater, the hatches underwater, and still get out because of the water pressure. But they did use some of those crossing some of the Soviet rivers, some of the specialized tanks, including the ones that would sort of go under the water, just because the rivers were thought to be, or were too deep for the tank to go across normally, but not very deep. So it was just 3 or 4 feet of water above their head max, and but they used those to get across. So those weren't really, some of the models weren't really amphibious. At least the Panzer IIIs weren't. So yeah, okay. So that gives us these units here, which is somewhat nice. We'll find a use for them. They're also air portable, so that if you want to attach them to an airborne division, yeah, I want Von Doma's elite attack force involved in this. Okay, we've had a battle off here, so the British have come back into the region here. Submarines at least, okay. Christian X's birthday. This is a picture of him as a younger man. There he is at this birthday, his, what's that be, his 70th, I guess? 40 plus 30, yeah. So at his 70th birthday, this was a medal that was made for the occasion after the occupation, obviously. He, I think, did a very, very good job leading his nation during occupation. We've talked about in the last episode people like Petain making compromises and trying to manage the Germans as best he could for France, where I think Laval, his sort of deputy, really became a complete and total collaborationist, where Petain was trying to do the minimum and keep France together. Christian X, I think, did extremely well, and I think Denmark should be very proud of him. And I just thought combination of the photo and the medal that was struck during occupation here was an interesting enough event. And he would daily, from my understanding, go riding his horse around Copenhagen in uniform, generally speaking, trying to keep the nation's spirits up, and with little or no security. And did a very good job with all of that. I wanted to show that off. Okay, and 1, and we got that. 2 and 3. Well, it's 3. Okay, advanced armor design. So I'll just cancel these out. We'll let this go because it's just 41, so we'll do that. No, and airplane radio. Good, but we're going to move that. We'll move that over to medium. The other one was first aid, which is now at 42, so that's pushing it a little too far. We'll move that over to artillery. How I just thought of, where's my commerce reader doing anything? Oh, on shell again. Not catching anybody. Can you operate? No, it's too far. Let's see if we can move them down here. Can you operate down here? Nope, too far. There we go. That should catch somebody. Okay, Von Schell, the organizer of the Shell program, which, if you remember, limited the varieties of motorcycles, trucks, automobiles that could be made in Germany to standardize them so that they would be more readily converted to war uses with fewer model types to have to worry about. Major General Von Schell, who is for Director of Motor Transport, calls in the press for an increased use of wood gas for powering automobiles. Companies will have to start making conversions for automobiles and testing for military vehicles. Now, we will have another event regarding this. Wood gas, and I'll probably talk again about it with the other event. When you burn wood, burn logs, whatever sort of firewood, the gas from it is in of itself combustible and can power a combustible engine. So you can run your gasoline engine off wood. So if you live in a country like Germany, like England, like Finland that has lots of trees, you can run your cars off of that. The problem is, and it's obviously a renewable energy source, very renewable. You can grow trees, and they don't have to be big, thick, long growth, old growth forests. They can be, new growth farming trees, like I remember seeing a lot when I was living in Scotland, where they would, grow trees for 5 or 10 years or whatever, and then cut them down and then grow again and cut them down and keep doing that, quick growth tree types. So you can use that kind of wood. It doesn't need, like I say, old growth or anything like that, like cutting down a Brazilian rainforest or something. It just, or even like the old forests in Germany, you can do it with farming trees. The real negative side is it's not very powerful. It's, just guessing here, 30-40% as powerful as regular gasoline would running in it. You say you have to tune the engines a bit different. And so you have these big collector things that you burn it, collect the gas, and then run it down into the engine. And George supplied these photos, and I hadn't seen them before of this. This is of the military conversion. You can see all the stuff put on this back. I'm not sure the model right offhand, whether that's I think that's a 38T, but I'm not absolutely sure. There. That's obviously a Tiger, so that's fairly late that they were trying to do that. I couldn't imagine that have much power, and that's obviously a half-track. So they experimented a little bit with it on military vehicles, but generally speaking they found it very inferior and not very useful for them. I've seen very few, just a few, trucks or like civilian buses painted camouflage or whatever that the military was using that used this, but we will see more of this in the future. So that increases dissent, just people don't like to not have their automobiles. Nope, we're getting ready to invade you, we don't want access. Okay. Medium warship radar has advanced. It's that one. And then we have a name of that. 32nd Panzer Division. We'll probably take it. Let's go with damage control. Keep our ships from being sunk too easily. Okay, victory! Like I was talking in the earlier episodes, the victory in France was a very, very important thing for the German army, the German people at the time. It was a very big and powerful thing. If you want to just click here, you don't have to go through it, though I'd recommend go through it at least once. You don't have to, like, every playthrough go through, but see it. Here, watch the parade. These are still the new Roman Emperor on the Hearts of Iron forum pointed me to this movie that is up on YouTube, and you can find it listed. Go down my page below movies associated with Third Reich events, and you'll find a link to this movie on YouTube. Pictured here is Papa Hoth. You've heard me talk about him. I think that's him there. And Gross Gauleiter of Berlin, which is Dr. Goebbels. I presume he's the shorter man in the middle there. Sort of put the German Army eagle over him. And Fromm. I think that's Fromm. Again, I'm not looking. But you can see the parade, and there's all these people, and as you watch it, sometimes the parade ends up not marching in a straight line, and they sort of have to wander through the crowds of people. Lots of bicycle troops. Oh, and also if you go through the events, you normally end up getting more bonuses. You get bonuses for looking at my pretty pictures. As you can sort of see more of it here as they're coming through. Just huge crowds, lots of troops. A bunch of them were brought in veterans from the French campaign, as well as local German, troops stationed near Berlin as well. And the crowds were very, very joyous at the time. Another close-up of the troops. Cathedral there. German Eagle. Soldiers march with pride. So yeah, they won. They deserved the victory. So now we've gotten rid of all of our dissent. Because that was such a big thing. Okay, we gotta take care of this. 2nd Panzer Division, we'll take that. Put it in the production queue, even though we're losing troops. Kick it to the top. Anything else? SD unit, okay. And no more money for crude. We like your Romania, but you're already in the Axis. You're going nowhere. If you're playing the TRE 4.3, you don't ever want to lose Romania particularly to the Soviets once they're in the Axis. Bad things will start happening. Not all of them are guaranteed to happen, but if things aren't going well there, other countries start to collapse and fall away or join the other side. Oh, okay, we have the Scharnhorst now. Let's see, my Navy is still way up here. Okay. If you notice, we don't have divisional commanders. I removed them to put them in charge of the mountain troops for the Yugoslav campaign. Hope I'm mildly safe in removing it, though I may end up having a revolt. Where does our revolt risk up here? Well, right there with all those mountain troops, not so much, but it's going to look more like this once we get them there. Okay, I'm going to break off one of these. And I'm going to send them up to here. Just have them SR all the way up to there. Move them to there. I like to separate a few because I think if they're all sitting here, it's a bit overkill, and it'll only like here go out so far. Eventually their effect will stop spreading, so I've moved a few from the capital up to Lillehammer here to get the best partisan reducing results here. I want to keep them the partisans from getting the nuclear heavy water plant there, and also eventually maybe get some other troops. We want to maybe put some here too. We need a few more garrison troops in Norway. And so far I'm not going to use the Einsatzgruppen, but we may end up doing that. So the Einsatzgruppen is partially for coming up in Yugoslavia here. Okay, support the family. A number of marriage loans and child support in the German Reich, granted since 1933, has exceeded 1 billion Reichsmarks according to official data. There were a lot of programs that were done to accelerate both marriages and having children. That whether it's low interest loans with, without collateral, or other rewards that the state would give you for having children. Good news, and we do lower dissent because obviously marriage is nice for dissent, though this costs money. But we're doing good with that right now, so that isn't a problem. For the German war machine and several of these events, similar things do give minor bonuses to manpower, but really none of them came in time for the children to be old enough, because even, in 45 you would be, what, if you were born in, 33, we'd be born in 34, so you'd be, what, 11 years old or something by the time Berlin was falling. So even that was more or less too young for the Hitlerjugend that were fighting in Berlin in places. Those were more like 13, 14-year-olds. So really did come too late to help in the Second World War. But had you not had the great loss of life of both military and civilians during the war, it would have really meant a population boom. And I will do a little modern commentary right now. I've recently been watching some stuff on television about Germany, about Europe, about this multi-million influx of mostly military-aged Muslim men. All of these refugees should be effing ashamed of themselves because they're fleeing their damn country mainly because they don't want to fight. If you look at most of the footage that you show, if not 100%, it's 95% young military-aged men. Yes, some of the tragedies that have happened when boats have overturned and they're bringing ashore 5-year-olds or women who've died. Yeah, there are a few of those, and those are obviously great tragedies. But when men are unwilling to fight for their country, and you go, well, you're not going to fight for Assad. Yeah, I understand. A lot of people wouldn't fight for Assad. Probably if I was an Alawite or a Christian, I might decide to fight for Assad because that's my side in Syria. But if you're other factions of Muslims, they're not willing to fight against Assad. They're not willing to fight against ISIS or some of these other groups. And yeah, they may be pathetic organizations. It may be bad, but it's their freaking country, and they're running away from it. And the world ain't short of AK-47s. Somebody would give them AK-47s. Trust me, somebody would give them AK-47s out there to fight if they were actually going to be fighting. And we would hope they would do a good thing. But they're fleeing their country. And now they're coming into Germany. Germany's accepting them. Angela Merkel, I think, is... I know she's more or less a conservative or whatever passes for a conservative in Germany, and I sort of like that. Even though she comes from former East Germany, and I think that's sort of why she's somewhat of a conservative, because she saw the worst of the left, shall we say. What the, I know a lot of leftists, some may be watching this channel, others, history professors, they have an idealized version, what they want the left to be, what it should be. Well, so far it's never been that way when it's really been in power and a lot of force. They think next time it's going to be better. Next time it isn't going to be the Soviet Union. It isn't going to be East Germany and the Stasi and all this stuff. I think it's always going to keep being that. They believe it's going to be better next time. Okay, I understand that. They think it's going to be better. A lot of people I know who've come to America in the last, since the Cold War ended, a lot of them are from Eastern Europe. They've come in and they've immediately moved to the Republican Party, if you will, because they see the dangers of the left. And so they want American conservatism. Not that they agree with everything in it always, but they just see that as, if you go down the left, eventually, not right now, not in the next 5 or 10 years, but eventually they see it as going what they grew up under. So they're pushing back against this. But Angela Merkel, I think partially also, out of guilt over the Second World War and how they treated people, is accepting a huge amount of refugees. And my understanding is that they're flooding in to German society, not into well-organized camps that people would be allowed to leave on day passes, so that you got to come back at night, and if you don't come back at night, we're not going to let others out. So sort of a system, if you don't come back and you get picked up by the police, you're immediately out of the country. A nice camp situation. Like I say, you go out for the day, you come back in, but we're controlling where you are, and with the eventual idea, you're going to go home when peace settles wherever your home is. You're not immigrating to Germany to stay. You're coming to avoid catastrophe that's going on wherever you live, and you're going to live in a nice camp. And if you want to leave Germany at any moment, you can leave Germany. They'll take you to the train station, put you on the train, and get you out of Germany. It's not a camp that would constrict you, confine you, keep you locked away behind barbed wire. It's just a camp with or without any fence, or maybe just a simple chain link fence that everybody can scramble over. But just the idea that we know where you are, you're in a controlled situation, you're allowed out many or most or all days or whatever, but you're supposed to come back to the camp, and it's supposed to be a nice, facility, a refugee camp. Nothing more than that. No other negative connotations than a refugee camp, with the eventual idea that you're going to return to wherever you are from. Well, I think this is going to change Germany. I think this is also potentially for a neo-Nazi, whether they are anti-Semitic, whether they're going to continue in the footsteps of the Third Reich, or simply a new form of Nazi, new Nazi, new National Socialist form that may not look to Hitler, but may look to other things, that will be a reaction to this, that is because the center, the reasonable people, refuse to do things. So the extreme will offer answers, and people seeing things falling apart will gravitate to the extreme. Again, I'm not advocating or in any other way saying it's good. I'm just saying this is what may happen if you don't do something about this, and you're being overrun. Now, I'll get back to where I was starting from in my mind, was that my understanding that you need about 2.1 children in the modern world with modern medicine to maintain a level population. And historically, if the birth rate goes below 1.7, I'm trying to pull this up from memory, sorry if I'm getting some of the details, or like 1.8 or something like that, it goes, but I think it's 1.7. If it goes below 1.7 per child per couple, you never come back from it. No nation, no cultural history has ever come back from it. Now, we do live in a modern age with modern medicine, so that may not be, we don't have long-term figures, because we've had, get back to the situation, so many people dying in World War II from so many different reasons, and part of them were obviously combat losses, part of them were civilian losses, whether from starvation or bombings or just being too close to the battle or whatever. I'm not assigning blame at the moment. I'm just looking at simple deaths. That obviously we were coming towards a modern situation with, you didn't even really have widespread use of penicillin as a good antibiotic against infection yet. It was in the Americas, but, in the United States, but it really wasn't in Germany at the time. So this, was still changing. So it wasn't quite to where we might see. But I think Germany's birth rate is down at like 1.5 or 1.6, as well as many other Western European countries are that or lower. So their birth rates aren't enough to replenish themselves. So you're going to have an aging population that's going to be retiring. It's going to, even if you wanted to extend their active work life, they'll just get too old to effectively do it, so that they won't be contributing economically, and they'll need to be supported. And so you won't have the support system to pay for that. And so Germany may be looking, hey, more immigrants, more workers, good. But these are culturally so different peoples. And I'm not even talking race. I know a lot of people immediately jump to race. I'm not talking race. I'm talking culture, language, attitudes, ways of doing things, viewpoints. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about skin color or eye color or any of that BS. I'm talking, and remember, I'm a Californian. I'm used to a mixed racial, cultural milieu that I grew up in. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a radically different culture that hasn't grown up, because I've grown up in and around people from different cultures, but they've also grown up here, most of them. And so that they're have a certain level of cultural assimilation. What I understand is, like the Paris riots of a few years ago, a lot of those Muslims weren't culturally assimilated into France, and their parents were pro-French types from particularly Algeria, but the younger generations just never got acculturated into it and have become anti-French. Well, what do you think all these, a lot of them are Syrians, but a lot of them are other peoples too, are going to be doing in Germany or anywhere else? I am not advocating against, this rant, if you looked at the beginning, you're listening to the beginning, against the places in Europe shouldn't be set up to house refugees. I'm somewhat thinking still that they're the wrong type of refugees, and that they're the people that should be fighting for their country in one way or another to get it solved. But for why ever these people are refugees, they should be treated as refugees within proper refugee camps, controlled, monitored, set up so that they will eventually go home, that it's not a permanent situation. I'm mainly talking about the Muslims because it's the culture clash. I've sort of, in my mind at least, given up on the idea that Christians are going to remain. I don't even know if they're going to remain in Lebanon. Lebanon was set up to be the Arab Christian country. Now, their birth rate fell, while particularly, is it Hezbollah? Because I think it's Hamas. I keep getting the two confused. Hamas, Hamas is the Palestinian group. Hezbollah is the Lebanese group. Particularly in this parts of Lebanon, the Hezbollah birth rate skyrocketed, and the Christian Lebanese birth rate went sort of European and sort of reduced. So what had been sort of a 50-50, or I think even to some degree a 60-40, 60% Christian, 40% Muslim, or something like that in Lebanon, and I probably have these figures wrong, so please don't attack me for a slightly percentage wrong thing, but has gone to where the Christians are now a distinct minority in Lebanon, and the French set it up to be a Christian, if not majority, but a Christian sort of land within Muslim world for Christian Arabs. Well, I'm sort of giving up on the idea that Christians are going to remain in the Middle East outside of Israel, and so they're being pushed out. And it, yes, I've known some Christian Arabs from various countries, particularly Lebanon and Jordan, and I don't think the king is anti-Christian or wants to subdue them or not have them there. But and Jordan is, at least their camps are, they've already been overrun by Palestinians, or people who identify more with being Palestinian than being Jordanian. That they're now feared to being overrun by Syrians as well, and to where they're going to be a minority within their own country. And then whose country is it? Is it the majority people's country, or is it the minority who are already there that allowed in refugees, first from Palestine and then later from Syria? Another question. If you're going to have a country, if you want a country, you have to control your borders. If you don't control your borders, you won't have a country in the long run. That's just a fact. Sorry, Europe. Going down the EU sense, if you lose control of your borders. You don't have to have a fence if you can monitor the situation. But if you lose control of your borders, you'll no longer have a country eventually. You see what, again, I'll go back to the diatribe, you see what happens, like in the Ukraine here, where Russia will just decide to flood in people. And then go, hey, this is now Russian territory here. See, everybody's living here is Russian, not Ukrainian. What do you think they're going to do eventually to the Baltic states, people? There's a lot of Russians that Stalin settled into here that weren't there before. And I think more or less adequately, peacefully, they've been living side by side, even in independent Baltic states with the Baltic. But trust me, Putin is going to get agitators in there to cause trouble. And then I bet you he's going to flood those countries with more Russians showing up if they don't control their borders. So Germany needs to get its act together, as well as other European countries, that whether it's birth rate situations or others, or their countries are going to change. And the United States, I really think, is a unique place, and we are much more readily, both culturally in our own minds, as well as physically, able to deal with people coming in from other countries. I've lived for a while in Scotland, but I've traveled around Europe, and I just don't see Europeans, for all their supposed multiculturalism, they aren't really. And this is going to cause cultural conflicts and problems down the road. And you gotta get your act together. Gotta set up, I think, refugee camps. They can be in Germany or other countries. Not saying not to, but just you need to control this. And if you don't, and if you have your small birth rate that is a shrinking birth rate, and if you can't come back from it now, like I said, I think it was like 1.7 for every couple. You need a birth rate for every 2 people that are birth age. Modern medicine may change that factor, but eventually you've got to do something to figure that out, to figure out policies to grow your population. We're having a similar situation in the U.S., but we're much more set up to take in people from other parts of the world to replace a low birth rate. We're different because we're culturally and physically set up to do that. I don't see these people coming in and 5 or 10 years from now being satisfied, being unemployed, living in ghettos, if you will, and not getting anywhere in life, and seeing that life is unfair compared to Germans being hired to work in German jobs, and they're not. And I think it's just going to cause problems. And I don't want it to go to and this may sound like an extremist rant into some leftists. This probably does sound like it, but my fear is that these problems will cause extremism to rise, and that's what I don't want to have happen. I don't want to see this again. That's one of the reasons I'm doing all this. So this is a modern political diatribe here, I know, and you do get my politics within this, but I'm not specifying a specific solution or a specific party, or you have to agree with me on any of this, any particular things or whatever. You can take it for what you will. As I'm seeing the problems, and I'm saying, here's a problem happening. It's going to get worse. You've got to figure out how you're going to deal with it. Obviously I'm not German. I don't know all of the problems or benefits of being a German or Austrian or Hungarian or Croatian or Polish or Czech or whatever. Each of these countries are different. They each have their own situations. I fully know and understand that. But you guys are going to have to find it. But you're going to have to look down the road and see how you're going to deal with today's realities and how it's going to fit into the future. And if you continue to allow more of the Islamic peoples in, that in and of itself isn't a bad thing. But the people that are causing chaos in Libya with the flood of people coming into Italy via boat, and many of them dying at sea. The flood of people coming in from Syria via Turkey into across the Aegean into Greece and are dying there. These people want to bring down the West. Well, they've temporarily, the Muslim Brotherhood had Egypt. They've lost Egypt, and I think they now know that Egypt, the moderates, shall we say, the people that didn't like Mubarak, that were pro-modern, shall we say, I don't necessarily pro-Western, but pro-modernist peoples, wanted a more free and open society. So they pushed to have Mubarak overthrown. Yeah, he was a bastard, not trying to say he wasn't, so don't try to list all of his crimes. I'm sure there were many, and I wouldn't like them, but when they opened up the system to a democratic outcome, they had the rise of the Islamic Brotherhood, which was also there, and which was really Mubarak, on my belief, and it goes back to Sadat and even back to potentially to Nasser, trying to keep down the fanatical Muslims in Egypt, is why they had the authoritarian state. Not necessarily, I'm sure their personal power was a factor, but not necessarily to keep a new moderate person being elected to reduce corruption in Egypt. Things like that, I understand. I'm an American, I understand the concept. But unfortunately, if you open it up to that party, you're going to potentially get them taking over. So either you limit what parties can hold office, and obviously that isn't a totally free and open democracy, but it's a limited democracy, or you maintain a dictatorship. But either way, the Muslim Brotherhood here has learned, and they still have a lot of support, and still have a lot of people here, have learned that the army and the government isn't really probably going to be theirs. So there's only another choice, is to stir up revolution and foment revolt. And seeing that they're in line with although not generally carrying out the extremist tactics of ISIS, or even Al-Qaeda, which Al-Qaeda, generally speaking, isn't burning people alive and crucifying people. But they may not agree with all of those tactics. They may see that they want to bring down the West, and part of bringing down Egypt and taking over Egypt is to destroy the tourism industry there, is to try to get it to flood in people into Europe. I think one of the most populous, if not the most populous, Middle Eastern Islamic country, because I'm excluding countries like Bangladesh and Indonesia at the moment, is Egypt. So you just get 5 or 10% of Egyptians decide to flee the chaos that they may cause in Egypt, and they're going to flood 10 or 20 million people into Europe. Because those people sure aren't going to go down into the Sudan. That's just as crazy or worse down there. Or into Libya, which has gone into chaos, or into Syria, and Jordan is just too small of a place, and that'll be going into chaos if they flood into there. So, and again, so they're going to flood into Europe, and they'll just use that as a destabilizing agent of simply bringing in lots of people that will eventually become dissatisfied and eventually, hopefully, revolt in their minds. This will cause problems. So if you open the door too much and uncontrolled, these people, not necessarily the most of the people, or the people that are coming, will want to do bad things, but the people here will want to cause and create the chaos. And that's it. Okay, that's my political diatribe. I guess that'll end this episode here. I want to roll it through to the next month because I just want to save it here. So we'll roll it for a little bit, but that's my political diatribe here. No. And of course we got light bomber prototypes, which is approved. And will allow us to do more research there to keep that flowing. I know this is a long episode. Okay, we killed a submarine off here. Good. They're doing good shape. And yes, you can comment on this, tell me why I'm wrong. If you do it in a reasonable way, don't, throw, your nuts or you're an evil, hateful guy. But if you tell me reasonable reasons why you think I'm wrong, I'd like to hear it. I'm not against hearing that if I got something, I'm not talking a detailed fact of a percent here or there, but why you think I'm wrong, because I can be wrong, and I would like to know why you think I'm wrong. Oh, capital ship, so that's aircraft, so we'll ship that over to there. Okay, we'll do that as well. I know I'm pulling off units that I've just been sending over to invade Yugoslavia, so I'm weakening that front, and they won't be there at least for the start of it. And Liebstandart, Adolf Hitler, good. Well, they won't be for the start of it either, but I'll be sending them. They should be here in Berlin. We need them better. I'll send them immediately down to get in as fast as they can. Okay, thanks for watching. Thanks for putting up with my political diatribe. And thanks for liking the videos. See you next time.